Let's talk about power and influence at work. And no, these aren't just buzzwords for executives. They are, the invisible currents that shape everything. Who gets heard, who gets the green light for projects, and who actually gets things done. Understanding how this all works, it's an absolute game changer for anyone who wants to make a real impact. I mean, you've been there, right? You see that one colleague who just seems to get things done. They can get resources, they can rally support, and their ideas are always heard. And you're sitting there thinking, what's their secret? It can feel like some kind of magic, but I promise you it's not. It's all about understanding the mechanics of power.
So, the very first thing we got to do is kind of reset how we think about power. Forget the corner office, forget the fancy job title. At its very core, power boils down to one simple, fundamental thing: dependence. Let's dig into what that actually means.
Now, the most important word on this slide is potential. Power isn't about actively twisting someone's arm. It's the capacity you have to influence them. Think about it this way. Your boss has the power to give you a bonus, even if they never, ever mention it. Just knowing that potential exists changes the entire dynamic. It's a tool you have, whether you decide to use it or not. This little diagram here, it nails the concept perfectly. Person A has power over person B, not because they're their boss, but because A controls something, a resource, information, a connection that B needs to get their job done. So the takeaway is pretty straightforward. If you want to build influence, you have to start by figuring out what the people around you actually need. Then, you position yourself as the person who can help them get it. Okay, so if power comes from controlling things that people need, where do you get that control? Well, it turns out that power isn't just one big, scary thing. It actually flows from a few different sources. Honestly, the best way to think about it is like a toolkit, a set of tools you can build up and get better at using over your whole career. And here's the big picture. On one side, you have your sources of power. Those are like your raw ingredients. On the other side, you have these things called contingencies. Think of them as situational factors that act like amplifiers. They turn the volume up on your power sources. You really need both working together to have any real meaningful influence. So let's open up that toolkit, shall we? You've got legitimate power. That's just your job title. Then there's reward and coercive power, the classic carrot and the stick. But really pay attention to these last two. There's expert power, which comes from what you know, your skills. And then there's referent power, which is all about who you are. It's when people respect you, they like you, and they want to be on your team. Just think for a second. Which of these do you lean on the most? All right, so you've got these 5 sources of power in your toolkit. But, just having a hammer doesn't make you a carpenter. Knowing how to use it effectively is a whole other ballgame. And that's where these power multipliers, these contingencies, come into play. There are 4 factors that can seriously amplify the power you already have.
Let's use expert power as an example again. Okay, your expertise becomes incredibly valuable when no one else has your skill. That's non-substitutability. It gets amplified when your team literally can't move forward without your input. That's centrality. It gets even stronger when everyone knows you're the go-to person. That's visibility. And it totally peaks when you have the freedom to actually use your own judgment. That's discretion. See how they stack up?
Now, I really want to zoom in on centrality for a moment because this is one of the most powerful and often invisible forces at work. Your centrality isn't about being popular or being the life of the party. It's about how critical your position is within the web of communication and the actual flow of work.
All right, let's make this real. Have a look at this network map. Every circle is a person and every line is a connection. Just based on what we've talked about with centrality, who do you think has the most influence here? Go on, take a guess.
If you guessed A, you are spot on. But the why is the really interesting part. You see, A has high betweenness. They're like a bridge connecting different groups of people who wouldn't talk to each other otherwise. They also have a high degree centrality, which is just a fancy way of saying they have the most connections. These things put them right at the hub of everything, while someone like B is way out on the edge.
Okay, so we've got the theory down. We know what power is and where it comes from. Now let's get into the practical side. How do you actually use this potential power? Well, that's what influence is. Think of influence as power in motion.
This slide breaks it down beautifully. Every single time you try to influence someone, there are really only 3 possible outcomes. They can resist you, they can comply, or they can be truly committed. And the tactic you choose to use has a huge impact on which one you get. Soft tactics are all about aiming for that commitment. Hard tactics? Well,
they usually just get you compliance, if you're lucky.
And this right here really gets to the core of it. Just look at the difference in the outcome. With soft tactics, people take ownership of the idea. They want to do it. With hard tactics, they're just following orders. They feel like they have to do it. If you're playing the long game and want real, lasting influence, it's always, always built on commitment, not just compliance.
Of course, we can't really talk about power and influence without talking about the dark side. Workplace politics. It's a phrase that makes most of us want to run for the hills, but understanding it is so important if you want to use your own influence in a way that's both ethical and effective.
And here is the line in the sand. Healthy influence is using all these tactics to achieve shared goals that help the organization. But organizational politics, that's when you use those exact same tactics purely for your own personal gain, often in a way that actually hurts the team or the company. But let's not get stuck on the negative stuff, because influence itself isn't good or bad. It's all about how you use it. In fact, one of the most powerful and totally ethical ways you can use influence is by proactively managing your relationship with your own boss. Now, this is not about being a suck-up, not at all. This is about being a professional and being effective. It means really taking the time to understand your boss's priorities, talking to them in a way they'll actually hear, and bringing them solutions, not just dumping problems on their desk. When you do this, everybody wins. You, your boss, and the whole team. And this quote just nails it. This whole idea of nurturing your professional brand, that's not about being fake. It's about being intentional in managing your influence, your visibility, and your network. This isn't something you do instead of your real work. If you want to be truly effective, this is part of your real work. So at the end of the day, power is just a tool. It's neutral. It can be used to build people up and achieve amazing things, or it can be used to control them. The sources and the tactics we talked about, they're available to everyone. The only thing that's different is the intent behind them. So the real question I want to leave you with is this: how are you going to choose to use yours?